Hello and welcome back. Now today we are looking at why going on more dates is actually the worst way to find yourself a relationship. Now, if you just want to cut to the point, then head straight to the description where you can download a guide of one technique of many that you can use to help you find better quality dates in this crazy dating realm. Because I know some of you just want to cut to the chase, but others of you want to understand why I'm saying what I'm saying, think about whether that's right, a decent perspective, and then decide that you want to find out a little bit more, find out ways to actually find better people to date. Now, you would have thought about the idea of dating. Dating is a numbers game. I've heard it, I've probably said it previously in episodes, and to some degree, it still is a numbers game. There is an element of going on a number of dates, being exposed to a number of people to be able to find somebody to date. However, if it really were true that the more people you dated, the more likely you were to get into a relationship, wouldn't everybody who's been dating for any length of time, actively going on dates, be in a relationship right now? And that might even be you, who's been like, I'm going on the dates, I'm doing everything, and I've been doing it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and I still can't find that right person for me. And I don't want to have to go on more dates, because for every date that you go on, that is your time and energy. And all of that takes away from your life. And don't get me wrong, finding someone to share your life with, as much as single life you are enjoying and putting out there to the max, you kind of wanna. And I was in this situation when I was dating. You'd have seen everything about single life, living on your own. My priority wasn't just finding someone to be with. It was there and it was happening. I was like, I would quite like to be able to share my life with someone, but I'm not going to let being single stop me from enjoying the situation that I'm finding myself in. And I've got enough standards to make sure that I don't just end up with anyone. But that didn't mean that it wasn't something that I wanted, something that I wasn't putting time and energy in. But at the same time, I have a lot going on. And I don't want my energy sapped by dating. And we all know what it's like to be caught up in all of the situationships, the playing games, the messing around, the non-transparency that there is in dating. And it gets us the most. Now, what it really comes down to in dating is, yes, an element of being exposed to a number of people, but it isn't the quantity of dates that you're going on. It can help at the beginning when you're trying to work out what you want, actually having a really intense period of working through dates within a 2 or 4 week period. That can work. I mean, it'd be tiring. You can put your life on hold elsewhere for a bit and just date with no real intention of finding anyone, but more the intention of finding out what you really want, to quickly evaluate that and get up to speed if you've not been back to dating, or just get over those nerves, to just get over the how do you talk to random people, how do you arrange a date, rather than letting that hold you back on someone who's truly aligned with you. And we do it in social media all the time. We test lots all at once and then we find what works and apply it later. But the real beauty comes from quality over quantity. And you will have heard that before many times in many situations. Let's take looking for your ideal home. You could head over to Rightmove and start looking up houses, maybe in a particular area. Let's say at least you have one level of criteria. And maybe in a dating context, that's the age. But for houses, we're saying Chelmsford for me in Essex. I would look up houses in Chelmsford, Essex. And if I take the idea that it's a numbers game, then I will go in and I will go and see every house that's listed there, regardless of how much it costs, regardless of how many rooms it does or doesn't have, regardless of if it does or doesn't have a garden, regardless of if it's a flat or a house. I will go and see every single one of those houses, and I will be busy doing so because there's a lot of listings. I imagine that if I turn to Rightmove right now, there'd be a couple of hundred to be going to see. So I would spend the next few weeks going to see those houses, maybe even months, because obviously there's new stuff put on all the time, just that there are people on those dating apps cropping up. So if I was really playing that, then I should be able to, having seen all of those houses, find somewhere to be. Now I might find that, but that whole process is going to be long. It's going to be tiring. And for every house that doesn't quite fit, I'm going to go, don't really like it. Not really for me. Now, if I'm going to be clever about it, if I'm going to be somebody that also has a career, also has friends and family to spend time with, and also wants to have time to myself too, I'm going to whittle my search criteria down so that I can find my perfect home. In this case, I whittle it down to a 1-bedroom property. I know that I would quite like maybe 1 to 2. So let's say the search goes down to 1 to 2. 2 would have been lovely, but in this area it turned out that going for 2 meant it was going to be leasehold. But 1 to 2 was the original idea. Then I've got a budget. There's only so much that I can afford based on what I was earning at the time. So I've got to whittle it down. And I don't know what that was exactly, but let's say 225 was the bracket of upper limit of what it could be. And after that, they're the kind of basic criteria we're putting in. Great, that's whittled my searches down. That's eliminated the need to go and see the 3-4 bedroom houses or more that are way out of my price range. Like, I'm not wasting any time. And don't get me wrong, it would have been lovely to walk around some lovely 4, 5, 6 bedroom houses, ones that had swimming pools. There's no way on this earth that an estate agent would probably even let me as a solo person who is like, yeah, my budget's 225. Why are you going to see that? We're not going to let you see that. And you have to do that with yourself in dating. You have to whittle it down in sensible ways. So, because some might think, okay, well, the more I expose myself to, the more people that I'm open to, the more opportunity there is. So, you know what? I'm not going to put an age range on it. I'm going to go from I don't know what it is, 18, I guess. Well, that's scary saying that as a 30-year-old. I wouldn't be going down to 18, but like each to their own. I'm going to go 18 through to whenever. And already I can feel I'm not okay with that. But you could, in theory, that's the same thing. By not putting that range of, in my case, what would I have been looking at the time at my late 20s? I'd probably put 25 to 40 in some particular way. 10 years isn't too bad in my head. Some people would disagree with that. Having that whittled down. Now, most people do have these settings on, but I know some of you sneakily like keep edging it up. So if it was 40 at the time, it's suddenly 45 because you're like, Or on a radius. Radius is really important to me because I like to spend a lot of time with somebody. And the idea of having to travel like over an hour is beyond me. The ideal is like 20, 30 minutes, right? Reasonable. 40 is the sort of middle danger zone. Like if the route's generally okay, you're going to be okay. And guess where Jason is? 40 to 45 minutes away, funnily enough. That was like the upper limit. And the only reason he came up in my search was because the app I was on, it does limit your search to your radius unless they like you first, and then they get pulled into your pool of people. So according to my radius, he would have never come up. But the fact that he clicked like, and I knew that about this app, so I knew that if people were out of the 5 kilometre radius, they would be pulled into my algorithm anyway. So I always knew when people would like my profile. But to me, radius was important. So that's that bit. So most people will probably have those turned on. But rather than going to see every house, and don't get me wrong, at the start, I think I had a couple of days, my brother came in when I tried to buy a house the first time, where we saw 3 or 4 in one go. And that was good because you kind of have direct comparison very quickly. You know exactly how you're feeling between each house. And I've suddenly gone, oh yeah, I would quite like 2 beds. I certainly don't want it like this. This one looks and feels more studenty, whereas this one's lovely and neutral and grey, etc. Like I can do something with this. So that's good to get that out of the way and done. But when it came to really finding this house, in fact, I don't think I saw any other houses. I previously bought a house, I put an offer in, it got accepted, but I pulled out. I just felt I was rushing, that trying to have the dog there would have been really problematic. And hey, this was autumn 2019, so it was just before COVID. Had I done it, I'd have been stuck, especially as a solo person. I know it was essentially dreadful for people living on their own because of the whole bubble situation. Wasn't very clear from early on. I'd have been on my own in a house with a dog, bless her soul. I would have been there and would have been totally on my own. So I see that as a sign, and it was a bit hard to like withdraw the offer because you know how important chains are to people, but I had to do it. I felt I was rushing. It wasn't the right thing. I'd also vowed that I would never ever have a mortgage again, that I would never ever commit to one, because I was like, I'm never going to have that. I'm never going to commit to something and pay essentially like double the amount over time with interest or whatever it works out to be. I refuse. I was going through my what am I accepting in my life phase, clearly. And I changed my mind, and that's okay to do. And it was only when I had turned on the notifications from Rightmove again. I'd been away. I'd been staying at a little shepherd's hut. It was the first time I'd been away since COVID. And I went and stayed in this shepherd's hut, very small. There was the bed, and in the headboard, it was like built into a little wardrobe at the side. The table in the hut folded down and came out so you could sit at it or put it away. And everything was very cleverly done space-wise, and I loved it. And that was really when I realised that I probably could live in a one-bedroom flat, because I was like, oh, okay, I don't need as much space as I think I do. And it's the beauty of going on holiday, right, or going on a trip. You only take what you need. There's only the space that you have. And so I think I adjusted the alerts to 1 bed to 2 beds. And by the time I came back, I had this one notification of this property coming online. And when I looked at the pictures. And I just knew. I'm quite good intuitively at knowing if I've got a good vibe at a place. And I always go to check. Like, I'm not this kind of person that would see something online and commit. I don't believe I would commit to a house purchase without seeing it first. Haven't done it to date so far. But even when my ex-partner and I were buying our houses before, like, I knew when things had a good vibe. And I was like, yes, I see the potential in that. Or that feels good to me. And this is the kind of thing that we need to do when we're looking for our perfect partner. Because yes, people do have a different vibe in person. It's important to get a sense of how it feels, which is why I'll never buy a house without going to visit it. I will never commit to a relationship unless I've been on a date with that person in person, and probably a number of times. Even this house, I think I came back another time to measure up, chances are. So choosing our perfect partner is the same as finding our dream homes. And don't get me wrong, this is not my dream forever home, but this was the dream home I needed as my first home out of being with my parents. Like, this house is my favourite thing ever. Who knows if I'll live somewhere else in the future one day. I'm really attached to it. So it's very, very difficult to imagine not living here. And the same should be said about someone if we're going into something that we want to be committed in, maybe create a family. I know that's high on the cards for some of you. Marriage, if you choose to do that. Like, this stuff is important, and it's important to get right. But it doesn't mean that you need to go around dating everybody just to find them. Of course, keep yourself open to opportunity, i.e. be on the dating apps. Actively use them in a managed and fair way that doesn't eat away at your time. And go on dates. Date the people that are of equality. So when I was choosing a house, I was looking at the house and I was going, this is finished off nicely. A lot of the places I had seen, I was like, I'm going to have to do some work to this. I don't really want to. This house looked essentially nothing like it does now in the upstairs part. It was lovely and white. The previous owner had taken it from it was built in the 80s, so it's very dated 80s look. Had put a new bathroom in, had put a new boiler in, had put new flooring in, had skimmed everything. That wasn't done so well. I know the plastering is not up to scratch. I mean, from visual, it's not that bad. But we know that some of the work is not the best. But even so, compared to some of the others that are just the same around here, she'd done probably 20k's worth of work that I didn't have to worry about. New radiators, Velux windows had been added. There was a lot of work done to this place that I didn't have to do. And it was white. And you might look and go, Chantal, why did you buy a house that was white? Come on. It's a blank canvas. I didn't have to paint anything white to get it back to normal. It was done for me. And that's when I could start to make it my own. There was potential in it. And even when we look at that from a dating perspective, we're looking for people that there's good potential for. And that doesn't mean that we have to accept poor behaviour and be like, but they could change. We're talking about people that are showing that they're willing, showing that for 75 to 90% of the time, that's the right thing, because we need a 10 to 25% of error, because they're human as much as we are. Make mistakes, learn from our mistakes. That's the key bit we're looking for. And I didn't need to go around to hundreds of properties that if I looked at was like, that carpet's really not up to scratch. I don't want to do work. That looks really dated. that picture means that I've got to do X, Y, Z to it. And I don't mind doing a bit of work, but it costs money, right? So if I was going to go for anything, if I was going to be looking for something, it was going to be something that was right for me. And that's what we need to do in dating. We need to be able to find people who are serious about dating, if that's what you're looking for too. You want to find somebody that's compatible with all of the things that you're truly looking for. And we can be open to certain elements. So I had originally been quite close-minded and just been focusing on a 2-bedroom property until I had the experience of going to a shepherd's hut and being like, probably don't need this. Can I look at 1-beds? And look what's happened. Have the most beautiful 1-bed that I love being in. The same goes for dating. And what we can get caught up in is, yes, they're 30 to 40. Yes, they're within an X mileage of Chelmsford. And then suddenly we're like, oh, they need to look a particular way. They need to be 6 foot or above. They need to be in a career. Now, there are some elements in there that are reasonable. If you are 6 foot yourself or 5'11", maybe that height matters. But does it really? One of my good friends is definitely taller than her partner and they're well matched. And imagine if she had said no to somebody just because she was taller than him. They have children or child on the way and babies already. They've got a house, they've had a wedding, they have a wonderful life. Imagine saying no to that just because she was taller. Don't get me wrong, I mean, she doesn't wear heels in pictures. She always thinks about how it looks in pictures, but she didn't let that kind of criteria stop her from dating someone that was a nice guy, met her needs, whatever those might be, could see a future with and could be a good husband, dad, partner. It's looking past the superficial elements of what we think that we're looking for, and actually from our numbers game dating, if you want to call it that, working out what we really want. And sometimes we can't work out what we really want until we're dating. I dated a number of people in my time, not hundreds. In fact, let me get the stats because I always think this is the most fascinating thing that you should know that I do. There were a lot of numbers involved, but I didn't actually go on that many dates. So hundreds, if not thousands of chats were started on dating apps. It must be thousands. It has to be thousands because we all know that when we first join Bumble or first join Tinder, you see a load of people and the matches just come through, especially if you've taken a little break at all. So like you're new to the platform, even if you've been on it 2 or 3 months ago, but people suddenly see you. I don't know if the algorithm pushes you out more because you're new, something like that. So classic, hey, how are you openers, or hey, how are you insert name openers, because I don't have any more time than that. Then I looked at how many people the conversation progressed enough that we had taken that chat to the phone to have advanced that. And just for context, this is over a 3.5 year period, right? So there are 82 phone numbers saved in my phone having moved from the apps. And the way that I know that they came from the apps is because I always save them as like, and this is not a real example, but Tom Bumble or Jeff Tinder. I didn't really use Tinder, or Charlie Hinge, whatever it might be. So I just looked up all the app names and came up that I have 82 phone numbers. Now, sometimes you hardly ever progress to anything beyond those sorts of things. Chances are that from the phone numbers, we did some sort of video call. Now, that's because some of the apps did or didn't have video call functions, or they did over time, or it just did progress that way. So, 82 phone numbers. This is how many first dates I went on. 16, not including the video calls. Video calls were like a vetting process. So chances are I had at least 16 video calls. Most of the video calls, I believe, did lead to a first date. There's definitely one standout video call date that I didn't progress with. I remember that one quite specifically. It was very odd. But yeah, 16 first dates. So out of the hundreds and thousands of conversations, and that element is where the numbers games comes in, 16 first dates. Even of the 82 telephone numbers I have in my phone, 16 is a fifth, 20% conversion rate. And from the original hundreds and thousands of chats, it's like, if it's 1,000 chats, say, over 3.5 years, I can imagine it possibly was. Like, bearing in mind that sometimes you say, hey, how are you? And they don't reply. That's 1%, isn't it? 1% of 1,000. 16, maybe 2%, 1.5%. Of the 16, 8 of them led to second dates, so that's a 50% conversion, but still 8 of the original 1,000. And some of those did progress onto third dates. Of the 8 second date criteria, 5 of those lasted 4 weeks or more. And this was definitely towards the later end. All right. There was one quite early on, actually. One quite early on. One in the middle. And I would say there were 3 towards the further down end. The later end. I can't even think I can only think of 4 people. So who knows what the 5th one was. But I made these stats at the time when I was fresh in it. I'm like nearly 2 years out of remembering who half these people are at all. And as I wrote this at the time, one of them is 6 months brackets so far, which you've now got an update of is nearly 2 years. So I didn't need to be going on lots of dates to find that one person. 16 dates in 3.5 years. Let's take it back because the 6 months doesn't count. So in 3 years, 16 dates. That's five dates a year. And I know that some of those date numbers, like people I met in person, a couple of them were really early on. And therefore they weren't people I was serious about being in a relationship. They were the testing period. They were the seeing what I wanted, just getting out on a date to be like, oh, what's it like today? Because I'd never dated as an adult. I remember I was with my ex from 19 and prior to that I was in a relationship. So I only met people through the likes of university or school, whatever it might be. So you don't have to be dating all these people. You don't have to be out every Friday night, Saturday night, Thursday night on a date with someone. And look at someone like Taylor Swift for this. Renowned for dating a number of people. But the reality is obviously she lives in the public eye. So when she dates someone, even just for a first date or second date, and can't do that in a discreet way, i.e. there's paparazzi everywhere, people are on it. And somehow she does manage to do that without there being too much going on until she kind of announces it to everyone formally. And obviously she's been in some long-term relationships. We know Joe Alwyn, Matty Healy was a flash in the pan, but that friendship, that relationship had developed over many years. And obviously there's Travis Kelce now, which seems to be going well and it is longer term. Back then, before then, she was dating other people and she wasn't, to our knowledge at the very least, wasn't going on dates every Friday night. You know, she certainly wouldn't try to announce that to press, if so. And she's allowed herself to date, but only dated people in a strategic way. And she's obviously kept that private to some degree, but she's not out there. If she was out there dating every Friday night, playing the numbers game, Thursday, Friday and Saturday night, someone would be telling stories. Someone would have back then have said about that date. There'd be plenty more going on and, you know, she wouldn't necessarily be able to trust them. She has to have a high level of who she goes on a date with, because otherwise she's opening herself up to someone going to the paparazzi for having all of these people tell different stories of her of their first dates. She must have some level of process where, okay, yes, she has dated a number of people, obviously high profile people in most cases, but to her, they would have all been of a level of quality at the point of which she would step out in front of cameras with them, even if it wasn't something that lasted a long time. But your job is to make sure that you're having a good time with whatever people you're spending time with. You don't have all the time in the world to be spending on dating every single person that's on a dating app. The same way that no one has time to spend going around seeing every single house to find their dream home. Like, that's not reasonable in the strategy. What is reasonable is making sure that you know what you really want. And I call this having non-negotiables. And that's not the nice to haves. It's not the they must be 6 foot unless there's a very good reason for it. It's the things that you know and determine that you really need from a relationship. And some of that can only be learned by being on dates, in being in shorter relationships, if you can get it to that point. Sometimes we can't work that out until we're in a long-term relationship. I was in my 7-year relationship when I went, I don't think I want this. You know, you can't sometimes do that without being in them. But that doesn't mean that in the early stages you have to be dating everyone to find out what you need. What we need is a filter to make sure that your time and energy can be invested in the people that have the best potential for being a fantastic match for you. So with every relationship that doesn't quite make it, you can redefine and refine what it is that you are looking for from the next person, from the next time that you try to find those people before committing to going on a date with someone. So you have a choice right now. You can either spend all of your time going on dates with people that really might not be a great match for you, or you can start getting really clear and strategic on who you're looking for from your dates, so that you make sure that whatever time you're investing in dating is worthwhile to you or has the best potential, the best probability, the best chances of being someone that you can have a form of relationship with, whether it's a 3-month long one or a 3-year long one or a 33-year long one. This way you can enjoy the dating experience without getting burnt out, without becoming cynical, without being negative about the experience and actually enjoying it, because you're setting boundaries with yourself, with the people that you're expecting to show up in your life, and by trying to actually find the right people for you. Now, if you think that that's something that you need to bring into your dating strategy, approach, then all you need to do is head to the description and download my free downloadable guide to working out your non-negotiables. This is going to be the thing that takes you from dating all those people that are just wasting your time to conserving your time and energy for the people with the best potential. Let me know how you find that downloadable. If you head there, you'll get a bunch of emails from me with that in. And you can reply to any of those or get in touch with me on Instagram to tell me what your non-negotiables are. And there will be some future episodes on non-negotiables. But for right now, I just want you to take away the fact that going on all these extra dates isn't what makes the difference. It is the quality of the dates over the quantity. And as I say, you'd have heard that before. But we're not going to make this superficial list of things that you think that you need and looking at all the pictures as you swipe. We're going to find those things that you are really looking for, truly looking for. And it's the approach that I took. I moved past some of the things that I wouldn't normally have accepted, not major things, just some things that didn't really matter, to be able to swipe, tap on Jason. There was one thing that made me almost go left, and I was like, no, it doesn't really matter, and I can inquire about it and find out more to make an actual decision, and I don't have to date this guy if I don't want to. More on that another time. Until then, and until we find that person for you to be with, let's keep celebrating single life together.